can never have too many tools. Shop DeWalt deals at Lowe's. Get a free Select DeWalt 20-volt max power tool when you buy a Select 20-volt max 5-amp-hour battery kit. Plus, get a free additional DeWalt 20-volt max 8-amp-hour battery when you buy a DeWalt 10-inch 20-volt max dual-bevel compounded miter saw. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid through 6/24 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Get comfortable being uncomfortable, and you just hit the nail on the head that we're all going to experience pain. Pain is going to come our way. But if you can look at it for that lesson that you're supposed to learn from it, what you can get out of it and what you can become, the way you can improve yourself and the things around you, like you said, there's a reason you're going through it.
Welcome back to the Two Promises Podcast. Let's dive right into another exciting adventure with BD and crew as he pursues his new passion of one day finding the most epic bourbon. The Two Promises team send their special thanks to Hobie and the Huckleberries for their masterful theme music. So grab a glass, relax, and enjoy responsibly.
Baby says she's leaving if I don't stop drinking wine. So I switched to whiskey, now I'm feeling fine. Drinking that smooth, smooth whiskey. No more wine. I like straight bourbon. Baby, you try the ride.
Welcome back again. I am really excited to be recording this episode with one of my mentors in the SEAL teams. And it's been really great. We've gotten to record with a few SEALs lately, and I know that you guys have really been enjoying it. And I know you're going to get a lot out of this conversation with Mr. Juan Gonzalez. He is the founder of Eagle Eye Protection, and he's been in the security industry for years. When I first met him, he was one of my instructors when I was going through SQT. We served together in some of the various SEAL teams, and we've had a great relationship ever since then. He retired in 2021 as a Navy SEAL and is now full-time running his security services firm. Juan, how you doing, man? Thanks for coming on the show.
Good to see you, man. It's been a long time.
It has been. So if you don't mind, would you mind introducing yourself to our listeners, giving them a little bit about your background, what got you into the teams, and some of your story moving through the SEALs?
Sure thing, man. Sure thing. Okay, so my name is Juan Gonzalez, and as a military member, almost all of my adult life, you're automatically known as Gonzo. So I've been known as Gonzo for many, many years, not just by people in the military, but that's also translated to my civilian world. So I want the readers to know that if you ever see my stuff online or in socials, you'll see the word Gonzo a lot. So I was an Army brat growing up. I grew up within the military structure and framework, but my father was an officer. I was enlisted, so that's a whole different world. Because of his job, he was in the Foreign Service Board. He was a diplomat for 90% of his career. I was raised and grew up mostly in South and Central America. So I was very familiar with that culture by the time I turned 15. By the time I turned 14, 15, we then moved to the United States, and I spent my last 4 years of high school in 3 different schools. By that time, I had already lived on the streets and associated with a lot of kids in South America. I felt older than everybody else by the time I got to the States. I can almost say that I felt a little bit out of place. I grew up in Argentina, Panama, Honduras, and visited probably every country in Central America, South America, Latin America as a whole. So I was very well traveled, and I had a lot of experience at a young age. You could say that I had lived a lot by the time I was 15. My father loved to travel, so that made it even better, right? So even though he was tied to a certain country for 2 or 3 years, he always took it upon himself on vacations and on all the free time that he had to see all the surrounding countries and understand and visit and integrate with even more cultures. So because of that, I've always been very social, very outgoing. I learned that by default. I wasn't born like that, but I was thrown into being the new kid every 2 years in a different high school, in a different environment, and in a different culture. So I really learned to get along with anybody. By the time high school was ending, I knew I wanted to do something. I knew that I was cut out for something special, but I didn't know what that was. And I sure as heck didn't have the skill sets for anything like that. I just knew that I wanted to do something special. I wasn't really prepared to go straight into college. I didn't have the grades. Academically, I was a little bit behind. I really didn't apply myself enough in high school. I was a big daydreamer, always imagining myself doing 100 different things besides sitting in a classroom listening to a teacher. Eventually, I did fix that, though. Eventually, I was able to lock it down in school and college much, much later. But during high school, I was kind of all over the place. So right out of high school, my senior year out of El Paso, Texas, I joined the Army. I wanted to be a doctor. I shot for the stars, I guess. And I went through the Army, went through the motions, became a medic with the 101st Airborne Air Assault Division in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and had a great 3 years. It was awesome. But I knew I didn't want to stay in the Army. I wanted to get my college fund and get out. I was ready to go to college, Loved the discipline and loved the history of the unit, but I just didn't want to be in the Army anymore. Got out, honorably discharged, and went through various colleges back in El Paso. Then I moved to Dallas for a little bit. And I still had that bug. When I was in the Army, I had seen some of the Special Forces guys running around base and ran into them in Egypt. We did a 6-month deployment to Sinai, Egypt. Great tour with the MFO, multinational forces and observers. So I got to hang out with them a little bit and see how they operate, talk to a couple guys, and I was hooked. But like I said, I didn't want to join the Army or stay in the Army at that point. Got out, went to school a little bit, had that bug, went to the Navy recruiter, said, you know what? I think I'd like to give the SEALs a try. Now, leading up to that point, nobody had talked to me about the SEALs. Nobody approached. My father never pressured me to go into the military. As a matter of fact, he almost talked me out of it. My mom as well. My mom didn't want to see me go back into the military again. But by this point, there was a lot of people that told me I couldn't do it. It was just way out of reach. They knew what they thought was me. And then they saw what Navy SEALs were like, and they're like, there's no way. And that only lit that fire even more. So I buckled up, I put my head down, and I started to do some research. I spent all my times at Barnes & Noble. Back when Barnes & Noble was a thing, before the internet age, I read every Demo Dick Marcinko book that was out there, Red Team, Red Cell, did a research paper on STVs. I was completely immersed and watched every SEAL team movie that there was up to that date that I could find and went for it. I had already had a long break in service from the Army and from going to college, so I was kind of pressured to leave college early and go into that. If I was going to do it, I was told I needed to do it now or I wasn't going to meet the age cutoff. By the time I was 27, I was back in the Navy and at BUD/S at 28 and spent the next 23 years in the military after that.
Wow.
Doing the best job that I've ever had. I call it a big fraternity is how I think of it. And I really owe all of the grit, all of the tenure, all of the toughness that I had going into that training, I definitely got while growing up in South and Central America. Everything has its purpose. I'm a faithful Christian and I lean on scripture a lot and God a lot. If you don't, I believe it's because you haven't hit rock bottom yet. But when you go through tough times and there's nobody else left to turn to, I know that I've got somebody that's always got my back, and that has always been God. And I've tapped him to him more than once. There are no atheists in foxholes.
Absolutely. That's really great to hear you share that. And it seems like we have quite a few parallels in our early life. You got to the BUD/S milestone a little bit later in your life than I did. I started almost right out of high school, but I did go right after I graduated. I was very encouraged. I grew up in a very Christian family as well. I still hold to that faith. And they encouraged me, well, before you make a decision, before you decide what you're going to do with your life, give a period or a season of service back and serve the community, go on a missions trip somewhere or go do humanitarian work or just do something. And I ended up going on a missions trip to El Salvador. That turned into a few extra trips. I'd studied Spanish all through high school. The way that was put out for me just lined up.
Yeah.
And obviously, God put me there for a reason, put me in a place. And so there I was really able to improve my Spanish speaking skills, which was really good because I thought I was going to do okay with A's all through Spanish in high school. And then I get there and I'm like, whoa, what language are these guys even speaking? This isn't what I studied at all.
Yep.
So when I was down there, you talked about you felt like you were a lot older. You had a more mature mindset moving back to the States than your peers. And I can definitely see that. The way of life that I saw down there is a lot different from what I experienced growing up. I moved around quite a bit too, from Southern Illinois rural to St. Louis, Missouri, city apartments to kind of a mountain community in Colorado.
Yeah.
And when I was in El Salvador, there was a really big uptick in gang activity. DAC-8, MS-13, those
That's
were
right.
kind of the big gangs present at the time.
Yep.
Would you say that some of those security concerns were reasons that you came in a little bit more mature, or
Absolutely. You know, I spent a lot of time on the streets with the kids that were in the neighborhood. I didn't hang out a lot with the kids from school because the school was far away. You know, usually it was a bus ride or my kids, my parents had to take me. So all my friends were really from the neighborhood. And those kids were, even though if they were in the same grade as I was, which was third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, and above, I always felt like they were so much older. They looked older, number one. They acted older, they talked older, and they did older people things, So there I was just trying to keep up with them as that little brother most of the time. So I developed street smarts really early on, situational awareness, how to talk, when not to talk, who to talk to, who to ignore, who to avoid. And I can tell you to this day, when I'm driving around an area in Mexico or in Latin America, what a good area is, what a bad area is, way before I even get there. I can even tell you on a map based on the type of housing that you see, right? Just how things look. I'm able to pick that up easily. Mannerisms, demeanor, the eyes, the way people look at you or the way they don't look at you. Those are all tells to me that I picked up when I was very, very young. And thankfully, my sisters picked those up too, because my dad made it a rule that if my sisters went out, I had to go out with them. So all of their friends became my friends. All of my sister's girlfriends became my girlfriends. And it was always a pleasure to go out and be with my sisters because I was always surrounded by a bunch of girls. And there I was trying to,
can't be mad about that.
no, that's definitely a pro, you know? So yeah, South America and Central America definitely did shape me, and it had big effects on my life growing up.
Absolutely. And so you came in a lot more prepared, a lot more mature. You did some college, you had Army experience as a medic. And then from there, you decided, hey, we're going to go to the SEAL teams. We're going to go into special forces. You liked what you saw with Army SF, but wasn't all about the Army culture that you had already experienced. You wanted something different.
That's right. And it couldn't get more different and more difficult than the SEAL teams. I always loved the ocean. I don't love it so much now, just like a lot of team guys, because of dealing with the cold water. And of course, the Pacific is always cold, which is where we do 100% of our training at Buds. And I just chose to go for it. And like I said before, had I not experienced a lot of tough situations, I think maybe the story would have been different at Buds. Buds was just another big trial. If you get through that 6-month trial, then you triumph, but it's not over yet. But because you get through that Buds pipeline, that crucible, it enables you to go through SQT, right? And then you get through SQT, you're still not a SEAL. Then you go to your SEAL team, and then you're proving yourself again. But you're using all of that history from Buds and SQT to get into the SEAL teams, become a good SEAL, maintain yourself and sustain yourself as a good SEAL. And then hopefully when you're done, your reputation is intact and you can get out, do bigger and better things with all of that behind you, all the positive historical attributes that you gained from those 20 years or 10 years, however long you were in, they carry with you for the rest of your life. And in some ways, it becomes your identity, which is sometimes a problem. And I equate it to being in prison, right? When prisoners get out of, whether it's 5, 10, 15, 20 years or more, and they get out of that prison life, that's all they know. Can't even assimilate back into society because it's really all they know. And they feel that that's all they'll ever be, is a con doing con things. And I think in the military, because transitioning in the past was always a little bit gray, it wasn't, for a lot of guys, it's not an easy transition, even though nowadays in the last 10 years, I think the government, not just through themselves, but also in the civilian world, there's a lot of transition programs that'll help a guy get out and re-identify themselves, reset themselves, and find that true purpose, that true identity, which is what you need now. I'm not saying forget about the SEAL teams or forget about the time you did in prison, because you can definitely use all that as learning points, just like you and I did. We use everything I learned in the SEAL teams, I parlayed and I used it in the business world. I use it in my civilian world. I use it in how I carry myself. I use it in how I speak to people, how not to speak to people. But all that takes time. And I had to let go of pieces of who I was in the SEAL team so that I could carry on and be successful in the civilian world.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of really good points, and there are some things that I've touched on in a lot of my writing, and I think that we could dive a little bit deeper in here. So you talked about identity, and I think some very interesting things that you brought up was how as a kid you were always learning, you were always active. Maybe you weren't the most active in the educational academia, but you were striving through street smarts, through learning people, through development in those ways, and you always had a goal. And it was that foundation, you'd already had developed some sense of identity, and you went into the Army, and you felt there was not a congruence. Whatever it was that was culturally there, it was a great learning experience. It helped as a stepping stone to bridge a gap, to put you on your way, and then you finally found your community, your fraternity, as you kinda described it earlier. And then all of those little pieces of resilience and all those struggles and trials that you mentioned all were a part of your success story. And so then you mentioned reputation and that foundation and how that reputation a lot of times, so we would have terms like perception is reality, how you're being perceived, how you're carrying yourself. Do you look lazy? Are you actively working? Are you actively volunteering? Are you doing the work to help out the team? Or are you the first person to jump in the showers? So you've really hit some really great points on developing that good reputation, because that's what's going to follow you. That's what's going to, once your 20 years is up, once your 5 years is up, however long it is that you do in the military, once that up, your reputation is really that foundation of what sets you up or sets you back for the rest of your life.
That's right, man. I mean, perception is reality, and how people perceive you, I mean, that is a reality of life. People are going to judge you, by your looks, the way you walk, the way you talk. And coming out of the SEAL teams, you can either get invited to that next room when you get out, or you'll stay on the other side of the door, right? Once you get through, though, it's your turn, it's your responsibility to show that you've earned wherever it is that you're at. We have a saying in the teams, I know you've heard it, you earn your Trident every day. And it's completely true, because I can't tell you how many times I was going through something and I asked myself, especially when I was younger, it's like, why is this happening to me? And let me tell you, it's all happening for a reason. And the best thing to do is just embrace it. If it's tough, if it's hard emotionally, physically, those are the best things to be going through in life, because you will learn something from every single point of pain that you experience in your life. It's the people that neglect that pain, discard it, or push it away. It's a shame when people do that, then they don't get to learn anything from that. And the reason we're all here is to learn from our past mistakes. And some people call them mistakes. I call them just experiences, right? You're going to learn from whatever position you're in right now, or whatever position you get yourself into. The harder, the better, because you're always going to come out a better person, a better SEAL, a better father, a better husband. You just got to accept it, embrace it, learn from it, and move on.
That's awesome. The other kind of saying that we have is get comfortable being uncomfortable. And you just hit the nail on the head that we're all going to experience pain. Pain is going to come our way. But if you can look at it for that lesson that you're supposed to learn from it, what you can get out of it and what you can become, the way you can improve yourself and the things around you, like you said, there's a reason you're going through it. In my transition story, I let some of that negativity kind of beat me down. And it's something that, I'm not proud of. You don't want to advertise that and be like, oh, like this was me at my worst. I mean, it's the truth. I was having a lot of health problems. I was going through a lot of the things that many people with combat experience or special operators, they kind of have their internal demons. We talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
And all of those things were hitting me all at once. I was getting denied healthcare,
Yeah.
and I just went in some negative spirals, and I couldn't sleep. I was having chronic pain. I kept breaking things. I broke my foot. I got a hernia. It was just like everything was going wrong. And here I am just being like, in my head, I'm like, oh, I worked too hard for this. I shouldn't be losing everything. I don't deserve this. But there was a reason behind all of it. And when you're going through it, sometimes it's hard to lift your head up, lift your vision up,
Yeah.
and see beyond it.
Yeah.
But what I would encourage anybody, if you're going through what I went through, the sooner you can get your head up and start looking out at the environment, start seeing what else is out there and not being zoomed in, either watching your feed or at your problem, the quicker you're going to get out of it and the quicker things are going to get better.
That's 100% right. And right now, when you were talking, I was thinking about some of that pain and trials. And the best thing to do is you take that pain, those trials, that hardship, and you chew on it, man. You chew on it till you can't chew it anymore. And then eventually you push through it, man. And then it's gone. None of it lasts. If you look back, all that stuff is over.
Right.
It's gone. But we get into this mindset, this emotion that it's never going to end. How can it end? I'm never going to get through it. And once you stay in those negative thoughts and you allow them to consume you, then you suffer. You suffer, you quit, you die, you contemplate suicide, you hide in alcohol, you hide in pills, and then it's a bad ending after that, And it's all comes down to mindset, man. Mindset, how you perceive things, all the bad things that happened to you in the past. How do you perceive them? How you let them carry you or keep you back, right? I started to never look at things as actual problems. I started to look at everything as a learning experience. What am I supposed to be learning right now? And one thing I learned that took me a while, it took me almost a year to learn this, is that whenever you have a trial or a hardship, something you don't think that you're going to get through, you don't have anywhere to turn, first and foremost, give it to God. That's the first thing you have to do. Now, that doesn't mean no action, just to give it to God and roll over and go to sleep. No, give it to God and then start taking steps to confront that hardship, whether it's a situation, a person, something internal that's just within yourself. And most of it is, we tend to really drown ourselves in anxiety because we start thinking about what things are going to be or how they could be. We start thinking too far in the future. Things haven't even happened yet. And we're already giving ourselves a heart attack. So pull back from that. Get rid of those thoughts of things that haven't even happened. Be in the present. Deal with what you have in front of you right then and there. And definitely don't think about the past. The past is over. It's gone. It already happened. You're never going to get it back. You don't want it to come back. Learn from it. It'll only lead you to depression. If you think about the past, it'll lead you to depression. If you think about the future too far, you'll be in an anxious state. Stay in the present. Confront all your problems. Talk to whoever you need to. If you have a problem with your boss or a coworker, a family member, your spouse, work it out right there. Communication is key. Get to the bottom of it, solve it, and move on.
And there's a lot of gold there. Everything you said about mindset, about staying out of the past, staying out of the future, I dig it. And we kind of talked about in Buds, just making it to that next meal. You're not looking all the way through all the trials. You're not looking at the rest of that 6 months. You're getting to that next step. What's actionable? What can I do right now? How can I improve my immediate space?
Right.
And if there's something you can do, great. Do it. Take action on it.
Yeah.
If it's something out of your control, release it.
You said something you said right now that just piqued my interest was that something to remind me of what you just said right now, where you have to take every task by the minute, by the second, because you're solving problems right then and there was pool comp. If you remember pool comp, you're given the instructions of what you're supposed to do that day to pass that evolution that morning. You're giving those instructions that morning. So you can't be thinking about yesterday. You can't be thinking about the next dive problem. You got to be thinking about right then and there because you're going to be expected to solve that problem in 30 minutes with the information you got 20 minutes ago.
Yeah. And if you're thinking everywhere else, you're not retaining.
Yeah. Not going to happen.
Great stuff. You mentioned communication, and that's something that as I grew as an operator and throughout my time as an adult, I kind of had the conversation with myself and I tried to share it with others, is that if you're going to invest in something, invest in personal development or something, anything like that, developing your communication skills is probably your biggest force multiplier that you could possibly do, because communication affects every area of your life, not just your career, not just your profession, but your relationships with family, friends, coworkers, everything.
Yeah.
So you mentioned communication. Is there anything you'd like to share? Because it seemed like you were all on it. Would you mind sharing anything about that to give us some tips on?
Yeah. I mean, communication is top 3 things that you should have. Number 1 is a human being. You have to be a good communicator. It'll serve you well all of your life in every situation. I can kill you with words, Brent, or I can build you with words. You have to really be careful the words that you let slip out of your mouth, because they really shape and mold not just the people around you, but they also shape and mold yourself. of what you tell yourself, right? As a SEAL, I was a communicator. So I was always communicating. I always had multiple radios on me, and I was communicating with multiple units, multiple people of rank structure, branches, and then also communicating down to the guys in the SEAL team as you become a chief, communication of who you want to do what, when do you want them to do it, how you want them to do it. All of those things become critical toward your mission. Now, in the civilian world, your life as a man, as a husband, as a leader, or as a follower, communicating your wants, your needs to your spouse, communicating to your children, not just verbally, but also with your actions, right? Because, actions are also a good way to communicate, and they can tell you a lot about somebody without them having to even open up their mouth. Verbal communication skills are probably something that has taken me the longest to learn, at least to the level that I need to know it. As a businessman for the last 15 years, and as a father and a husband for the last 18 years, communication will make or break any man's relationship, any man's career. So you really need to focus on being a good communicator your whole life. And it never ends. And certain people, you're going to communicate this way. Other people, you have to communicate with them this way. So there's also a lot of emotional EQ, a lot of EQ involved as to how you communicate with certain people. And that's only learned through experience. If you don't get out there, put yourself out there, you're constantly trying to learn things, associate with people. In this digital age, it's really easy to get lost in your phone and get lost in the web. And I tell my kids that we're social animals, we're meant to talk to people and liaise with people and learn about each other. And the only way you can do that appropriate is through good communication.
Absolutely. And you mentioned so many good things there is the way that you need to communicate with just different people. And it's a learning process and it's very dynamic. And you look at success and you think, oh, I'm going up. I'm always improving, right? 1% better every day or whatever it is. But a lot of times it's kind of a wavy line and you have some successes, you have some setbacks and things like that. So there was maybe a medical thing happens and you're not as present, you're not as much yourself. And so your communication skills kind of fall back a little bit. You're angry, you're projecting. Any of these things will happen to any human being throughout their life. And so you can't really beat yourself up. Kind of what you're talking about. How do you communicate with yourself? If you just keep beating yourself up of, oh, I'm not as good as I used to be, or, oh, I made this mistake or anything like that, that negative self-talk is just going to keep just driving your performance down.
Yeah.
Being able to let it go, being able to know that, hey, man, life is a process. This is a learning process. We're going to have good days. We're going to have bad days. But as long as we're intentional about our growth, intentional about our improvement, and really trying to improve those behaviors and skill sets that we believe in, that we know we want to be the person that we know ourselves to be and that we want to be, then that is a success in and of itself.
100%, man. 100%. Now, getting to that point, that's a whole different story. Getting to the point where you can understand that takes a lot of self-reflection. Meditation for some, I like to call them quiet moments where I know you've heard a tactical pause or a pregnant pause. Sometimes in life, especially as you go through trials and you're going to reach a certain plateau where you feel like you can't go any further or you don't know how to get further, you have to be able to take a step back and look at how far you've come, look at all your positives, realize your negatives, learn from them, but turn them into positives. You can turn any negative into a positive. It's all about mindset. So yeah, I couldn't agree with you 100% more.
That's super great. So it sounds like you've got a huge foundation. You've got the Army background, the medical background, you've got deployments under your belt. You became a SEAL. You learned all of those hard skills and soft skills of being an operator, aggressive postures, defensive postures, target assaults, threat analysis, not just from doing your chart studies, doing your significant actions, things like that, from like mission planning level, but also at the tactical and technical level while you're on the field and you're analyzing and responding to threats in real time. You've got multiple deployments, multiple of those train ups where they drill these skill sets into you, and you've got that foundation. You have that embodied. And even while we were together at SEAL Team 17, you were running a lot of security business. You were doing a lot of security stuff on the side, doing trips. And now, since you've officially retired, you've pretty much moved full time into the security space. Do you mind telling us a little bit about how that transition came about?
Yeah. In 2009, while I was still active, I started the business as I was getting out. And I knew I could only take it so far. I mean, I was a one-man show. Imagine if you were to stand up right now and empty your pockets. That's what I started the business with. I was in E6 when I got out the first time. So I had a lot of motivation. I could shoot, move, and communicate really well. I hadn't even done an LPO tour. Well, I did an LPO tour at third phase as an instructor, but it's different when you do one in the platoon, a little bit more dynamic. But I had a calling. I knew that I wanted to do something else or that I could do something else. So I just started picking at it. I didn't even know how big the business animal was when I started it, but I started one stone at a time. Okay, establish my LLC. I went through all the admin stuff, right? Get my license and get my certification, get my carry permit, get my guard card. All right, now I can start selling myself as somebody that does security. Who do I do this for? At the time, Mexico was a war zone, the border there in TJ, in Tijuana. And I thought, what can I do to help people out that are going there? I had already been doing some low-level security protection, right? I added vehicles to it. Then I added training. Well, I had already taken every tactical course the military had to offer me at that point. How do I translate that to the civilian world? Defensive driving, evasive driving, medical courses, TCCC, counter surveillance, situational awareness, marksmanship, basic, intermediate, and advanced, right? So now I've got a whole courseware. I've got a whole catalog of things that I can sell. On top of that, I can sell my services to security. Everything I learned overseas as a kid and adding what I learned in the SEAL teams, now I've got a real good tactical and technical mindset that I can sell to the public if they ever need to travel, if they need safety, if they need security. I can do that for you. And if I can't do it, I'll find somebody that can. There's other guys out there that I trust that'll help me do this. One employee turned into two, office turned into 3, 4, 5. Now I have more people coming to me for work. Open up another office in Mexico City. I got some local nationals that I trusted and I vetted and I had worked with down there for a little bit. Then Mexico turned into Colombia, then in Brazil. Next thing you know, we have a full-fledged business, over 150 employees at one time. But going back to what you spoke to about earlier, we were talking about getting to a certain level and understanding that in order to go to the next level, you need to be a better communicator. Well, that's exactly what happened to Eagle Eye. We got to a point where we couldn't take it any further with who we were and what we had. So we partnered with a bigger, stronger, better company. And that's going to take us into the next 10, 15 years, hopefully. Good communication will take you to maybe 100,000 a year. Better communication will take you to 1 million. Once you get to 1 million, if you want to get to 10 million, you got to be really smart. You got to communicate effectively across a whole spectrum of people you're dealing with. You're dealing with corporate people that have been in business for many, many years. You're dealing with legacy companies, Fortune 5, 310, that expect a certain standard and level of care. To get to that, you need to be an even better communicator, right? And ask for help. I learned early on that I could not do it all alone. I had to ask for help, but the right help, right? And that's exactly what happened. We took it little by little, piece by piece, as I learning how to be a businessman the whole way. I didn't study it. Nobody told me how to do it. I sought mentors, just like I was your mentor in the beginning, as a lot of instructors are for us as we're going through the system. I had many myself in the teams, guys that I still look up to. We share some of those guys in common. And just keep looking, keep learning, keep asking questions, ask for help when you need it, and be that man of service as you spoke about. I'm big on that now. My job on earth is not about me anymore. It's not about you. It's about helping the guys to our left and to our right that need that help, need that coaching, need that mentorship, need that experience so that they can eventually get to a point where they can tell themselves what I just told you. Be a human of service.
I like the way you put that. So we in the teams, anytime we'd go to a training site, we'd have lodging, we'd have anything like that. It was kind of drilled into us. Leave it better than you found it. You're going to have a field day at the end of it. You're going to clean it up. And if you can make improvements to it, make improvements to it. Deployment site. They joked that we were SEAL bees there in our little fobs or whatever camp we were on. And we would try to find ways to make it better for the people behind us. And it seems like you have translated that to like a much deeper level, not just a physical improvement, not just a cleaner environment, but a social improvement by teaching others, training others, getting them up to that level of competence that you had at one point and encouraging them to go higher. So that life of service and that life of building people is just an incredible way to look at your life, your day-to-day, your outlook, and your mission in life. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, that's something that I learned in the last 5 years. If you've been given the opportunity and you have experiences to share, then you should make it a point to do that for the rest of your life. And going back to what you just said, leave it better than when you got it. I gave a shooting course here not too long ago, and I had 10 M4s that were given to me to use by friends and members of the shooting course. And I said, okay, I'll get those back to you. I'll clean them up. They're like, no, don't worry about it. I could not clean them up. I mean, it took me 2 days, but I cleaned 10 M4s because I just could not give those weapons back to them dirty. Because you and I both know how many hours and how many cans of Copenhagen we spent while cleaning guns.
Right. That is awesome that it's still with you, ingrained in you today, that you're still living it too.
Yep.
A lot of times people hit a peak, hit a pinnacle, hit a plateau, and they think they've arrived. They think they've made it. And so they let all of those steps, all of those things that got them there, they let it go. They drop them and they find a sense of entitlement that, oh, I should be here. Oh, I should have this. I deserve this. And yet you're not taking out the trash anymore. You're not cleaning the weapons anymore. You're not doing every single thing that got you to that plateau. And if you're not reinforcing all the steps that got you there, you're going to be trying to build on a crumbling foundation.
Yeah. Totally, man. I don't even have anything to say to that. You're 100% right.
What would you give? I mean, you've got experience in the tactical world, the SEAL world, all of that stuff. You've been a business builder for over a decade, probably pushing a decade and a half, 2 maybe. And what advice would you give the entrepreneur who is in the grind, who is, they've got their vision, they're building towards it, they're working towards it, but they know they need to take the next steps? What advice would you give to them who's somewhere in the midpoint of their entrepreneur journey?
Okay, so as you start to grow your company, you become whatever it is that you're selling, whether it's a service or a unit, right? Or widget, a product, whether it's a service or a product, you're going to get into the business of managing people. For example, we sell security services, but in order to do that, it takes manpower. So there's a lot of employees involved, right? A lot of humans involved. So it became a lot about human capital management for us, managing characters, personalities, certifications, qualities that these people possess, right? And in a lot of businesses, those people can make or break your business. So you have to be very wise and very careful on who you bring into your business, right? For how long and what your expectations of them are. That's number one, is hire correct, right? Take your time in finding the right people that are going to grow your organization in the way that you want it to grow. That's number one. Number two is grow slow. There's nothing wrong with growing slow, because when you grow slow, you grow deliberate. If you grow too fast, you may miss steps. You may hire a little too quickly and hire the wrong person. That's going to set you back 2 years. So take your time, develop your product first or your service first, get familiar and understand the value that you're trying to convey, you're trying to provide, and hold that value tight and don't move from it. Don't get swayed. Don't dilute it, because that's what people are buying. They buy the value that you're bringing, or they buy the value that product affords them, right? If you grow too fast and you hire the wrong people, your value is going to get diluted. So take your time and hire the correct people for your organization.
Those are some super excellent points. I think today you've talked about screen time with family members, all that kind of stuff. So often we get sucked into that dopamine just addiction, and we're always just looking for that next little bit of satisfaction. And even just outside of that, even if I'm not just looking at a metric on a phone, but I'm also looking at my, say, physical fitness level, and I've got a milestone that I want to hit. And I'm so focused on that I'm like, oh, I got to go fast. I got to go fast. I got to go fast. Or, oh, I don't have the views, the followers, the likes, or anything like that. And any of these metrics that kind of get you sucked in. I really love how you put just grow slow. It's not about seeing that 1,000,000% rise. You're scaling over time. You're being deliberate. You're being intentional, and you're going at the pace you need to, because you're going to run into more problems if you have such a big peak and you can't keep up with the growth. Then that could be another setback. You're going to have a little bit of that upward trend, but being comfortable growing slow and going through the growth and taking the lessons as they come, I think is a very important lesson for even myself just to kind of keep on board, to think about, and to have that expectation management that I'm not always looking at whatever it is that I want my end result to be. I'm dedicating myself to the practice and the process on the
Yeah.
day to day as we go through it.
Yeah, you'll learn so much more on that slow growth and on those valleys. You mentioned peaks and valleys, right? Ups and downs, highs and lows. The time that you're going to learn the most is on the lows. So embrace the lows. Sit in your lows and understand why you're in a low. Don't be so quick to move out of it if you don't know why you're there, or you're just going to be right back into it.
Freaking awesome. I'm loving this conversation. I'm thinking maybe if we can transition, you've got tons of experience, tons of guidance here, and you're in the security realm. So I like to help my listeners get some nuggets from maybe some area that they might not be as familiar with. I have people my parents' age, people my grandmother's age. I have teenagers, and I have people my age. So there's tons of people out here listening, and they're from a very wide spectrum. So their experience is not the same as ours, being military background, SEAL teams. Would you mind sharing some of the expertise you have as a security specialist with your eagle eye protection? What tips could you give my listeners for improving the security posture in their day-to-day life?
Okay, let's start. I could do this in my sleep. I've done this one, and I've done this course, and I've taught hundreds of people how to be situationally aware, right? Which is something I learned when I was really young, and I carried that all the way up until I was in my 50s, right? I just turned 52. I'm going to start with the personal side, which is you, yourself, and then I'm going to move into your physical reality, which would be your home, your business, and then the security circle, basically, that we live in, okay? So let's start with the self. Number one, the best thing you can do as a person navigating this earth is to be aware of your surroundings, all right? Now, what does that mean? It means that before I leave my house, I'm not just leaving it unlocked, right? I'm turning on lights. If I need to turn lights on, if I know I'm going to be gone for a trip, I turn some lights on and I make the house look lived in a little bit, right? I leave the house. When I get to my car, I don't have my head looking down at my phone while I'm going to the car, right? If you live in an urban area, downtown, big city like that, you definitely want your head up all the time. Put your phone away. Do not have your phone in your hand. Put it in your purse, put it in your front pocket or something. Right now, in a lot of places, if they see your phone sticking out of your back pocket, they'll just take it right out of your back pocket and they'll be gone. All right. So have your head up when you're out and about, walking around, and be aware of what people look like as they're walking towards you, or maybe on the other side of the street, what they're doing with their hands. Are they hiding their hands? Do they have a hoodie? Are they hiding their face? Do they have a mask on? All right. Are they stumbling? Are they walking a little bit quirky? That tells you a little bit about their level of consciousness, right? Maybe they've been drinking. Maybe they're high. Maybe they're walking a little bit aggressive and a little bit too quick towards you, right? Or maybe they're acting like they don't want you to see them, but they're still walking towards you, all right? So those are all tells that I get to see just by having my head up and looking at my surroundings, all right? Now, I'm moving along, I get to work or I get to school, whatever it is that you're doing, and you get confronted by somebody. Now somebody's in your space. Guard your space. Don't let anybody talk to you within hand striking distance. Number one, keep them a little bit at bay. You can do that tactfully and in a nice manner. You don't have to be rude about it. You can even take a step back. But the problem with taking too many steps back, it lets somebody know that you lack confidence or that you're probably scared, which is what they want, if they have nefarious intent. Somebody that doesn't have nefarious intent won't take offense to that, right? But if somebody does, you'll be able to tell because they'll keep closing that distance, even after you put your hand up and tell them to stop and to give you and to respect your space. All right. So now you're in a confrontation phase with somebody and you know that they have bad intent. So you have to have some skill sets, man. If you're a man, you got to be in shape, right? If you're a woman, I would also say you should also be in shape, especially if you have kids with you. If you're a single mom and you're putting yourself out there all the time, you got your kids, You're carrying your bags, grocery bags, whatever, your purse. You're distracted all day, right? So give yourself some tools. Take a self-defense class. Carry some spray. If you're a man, learn how to fight. Stay in good shape. A fight, an all-out brawl, a fight after 10 to 15 seconds, 15 seconds if you're lucky and in halfway decent shape, you're going to be spent. You're going to be absolutely spent. If you don't train for it, imagine if you're just somebody that has never trained to fight and is out of shape, you don't have a chance against a young buck on the streets that is high, right? So invest in yourself, all right? Guard your space. Don't be afraid to talk to people because when they talk back, you get to know a little bit about their level of consciousness. Are they not talking back to you? Are they avoiding? Are they slurring their words? These are all things that you can tell from people without even being in a physical altercation. This is just you being observant and trying to socialize with somebody. So be aware, keep your head up, guard your space, be respectful, and move throughout the planet smartly. All right, now let's talk about the home, the business, and the residence. There's a lot of things, anybody can go to Costco or Amazon, get a couple cameras, a Ring camera, and you're up and running, right? It's not that expensive to have decent home security, right? A Ring camera is awesome because you can see who's at your door. Don't ever just open up a door without seeing what's on the other side. That's a big tactic these days for people to bum rush your door and get inside your home. You may even have somebody on the other side of the door that seems like they're in duress, that are just trying to get you to open the door because behind them around the corner is two other guys that are going to bum rush that door. So get that system, whatever you need, so that you don't have to open up your door. If you don't have something like that, then just talk to them through the closed door. Anybody that doesn't have bad intentions will talk to you from the other side of the door and be fine with it, right? We're in this period where we've gotten to the point, Brent, where we're afraid to kind of stand our ground a little bit and be forceful when we need to be because we don't want to offend people. And I think that's a detriment.
Right.
That is a big detriment right now, and that'll get you in trouble. Alongside lighting, good lighting is a key factor in your house, right? No bad guy wants to come into a house that's well lit, right? An ADT sign or some sort of sign on the lawn that says, hey, this house is being monitored. You want to be a hard target. Don't be a soft target, right? A soft target is somebody that walks with their head down, looking at their phone with their hands in their pockets as you're talking to people. Don't ever talk to anybody in your space with your hands in your pockets. Have them out in front. Your hands live out in front, okay? Back with the home. Getting to the home is one of the most dangerous parts. As a security guy, a lot of assaults happen in and around a vehicle. So when you're getting home, you're getting out of your car, you're distracted. That's when guys will run up behind you and attack you from behind. Get in your house through the garage. When you open up that garage door, sometimes when I'm overseas or in a third world country, I've driven by the hotel a couple of times or by the Airbnb a couple of times. I do a couple laps to make sure nobody's outside waiting for me, especially if the garage door is a tight space where I know as soon as I open it, somebody could come around the corner and get in, or somebody could just run in from a car that's parked outside. Always be aware of who's outside your house parked. Any cars that don't belong, if that's your neighborhood, you're going to know. You're going to know which cars belong there and which cars don't. You're going to know which cars have been sitting for a while. You're going to know what people belong there, what people don't. I always make it a factor to know who my neighbors are. I know all my neighbors in my neighborhood. In every neighborhood that I've ever lived in, I know exactly who lives in each house. And I make it a point to socialize with them every now and then just to make sure that I know who's there, who's living there, and that they know that I'm still the same guy with the same amount of people in my house. You got to take care of each other, especially when you leave your house for periods of time. You can count on a neighbor. Hey, I'm leaving for a couple of days. If you see something wonky, let me know, right? So those are some key factors. They seem like common sense, but we just don't do them, you know?
Absolutely. That's all great. Thank you for sharing. I'll share maybe a not so good application of some of the principles that you just mentioned and shared with us. Keeping your head up, looking around. So I'm young. This is while I'm on my missions trip to El Salvador. We had some time off. I went on a hike with some of the other people to Puerto del Diablo. It's like a little mountain hike, and we were on our way back. I'm talking to the person sitting in the bus seat, and it's very common in El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala. I went to most of those places. Well, I went to all those places, spent different varying amounts of time there. But on your buses or your public transportation, you'll have people boarding the bus and they're selling things. So chiclets, tamales, pollo, like whatever. Like I literally had somebody carrying a chicken coming onto the bus, like trying to sell me a chicken.
Yep.
So I don't have my eyes up. I'm not being aware of my environment. situationally aware, and I'm talking to the person next to me. All of a sudden, there's somebody just right here in my space. Oh, hey, blah, blah. And I think, oh, he's just trying to sell me something. You know what I mean? Like, oh, no, I'm good. No, thank you. No, thank you. And then he persisted. And then, the hair on the back of my neck started standing up. Then I started realizing, oh, no, this is not somebody trying to sell me something. This is somebody trying to take something from me. So I tried to play the dumb tourist and just pretend like I had no idea what he was saying. And, oh, no entiendo, whatever. You know what I mean? And then he started escalating. He's putting his hips onto my shoulder. He's tapping my thigh to try to get my wallet or whatever. And he's escalating. And then I start piecing his words together a little bit more. He's speaking Spanish, obviously. And he basically says, dame tu cartera o quieres que lo tomo? Hey, give me your wallet, or do you want me to take it from you?
Yeah.
And so at this point, I'm knowing, hey, I don't want to be the reacting person in this situation. If I'm reacting to his violence, I'm already at a disadvantage. So I kind of like use that time to give a little bit of maybe tactical deception or whatever.
Yeah.
So then I said, well, no. Then I started speaking Spanish because I first would pretend like you did. It's like, no, actually, over there's the door and I want you to go.
Yeah.
Actually, ahí la puerta, quiero que se vaya. And I pointed to the back door of the bus, and he's like, oh, you speak Spanish. And so then he just kind of redoubles his efforts. And going back to what you said, get the tools, get the training, go to a class. I had practiced karate for 3 or 4 years up to this point, and I wrestled for a year in high school before I moved away from that school that had the wrestling program. So luckily, even though I was already a target for violence, financial violence, all that kind of stuff, I had tools in my toolbox. I had some preparation in advance. So I was able to basically, I elbowed him in the crotch. He had very baggy jeans on, but that caught him off guard. I immediately had him in an elbow lock and was able to walk him towards the back of the door, towards that door that I kind of pointed him towards. I was able to walk him to the back of the bus. And me, thinking that my posturing would have been enough at this point to bring the threat down,
Yeah.
I erred on the side of less aggression, which sometimes that's a consistent thing in my life. Sometimes I probably should have gone a little bit more aggressive, but I didn't. So I just kind of kept that lock in. I pushed him back towards that door. We were getting within a few feet of it. And in that flurry, like my glasses got a little cocked at the time. At the time I wore glasses. So my glasses got a little cocked, and he sees that. And so he starts punching at me. And I'm adjusting the glasses with one hand and I'm blocking with my other hand, and no blow really lands. Like it's all just kind of maybe something like tap my forehead or something, but like there was no real connection. So I get my glasses on straight, and now I'm like, okay. And then I finally put up my dukes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're kind of in like a standoff, and I throw one punch, and I will never forget it, because at this point, like the whole bus is just quiet. Everybody's like, oh my goodness, the gringos, scrapping with. And so everybody's quiet. Nobody wants to say anything. And it's just dead silence, and just the slap. I can't even replicate it, of my fist just landing right below his eye.
Yeah.
Just in that quiet environment was just, I want to say hilarious, but it was just very, like, you can't make it up. You can't really repeat it. And so that kind of almost felt like it echoed.
Yeah.
But that also caused him to flail. He had a spike bracelet on. The goth thing at the time was very big, even down there or whatever. So they got these big punker spike bracelets. That does knock my glasses off. I think he just knocked my glasses off. I didn't realize anything else happened. I just thought his arm flailed, knocked off my glasses, no big deal. I push him out the door. I throw him down to the street. This time I'm not fiddling with my glasses. I'm letting those things go. So I get him out to the street, and all of a sudden he looks up. Like his eyes change. His whole mannerism changed. Like at first it looked like he was going to like turn and go. Like, all right, fine, I'm done here. But right about that time, I'm feeling some fluid on my eye. And I thought, oh, am I sweating? Like, what's going on here? I'm not thinking anything about it. I'm engaged in what's going on right here. And so he grabs the side of the bus. He's starting to like pull himself back in. And I bring my knee up ready to throw a kick. And it's poised, it's ready, and it's about to rock. And it's right at his face teeth level. He realized he'd already gotten hit once, didn't want to take a foot. So he took off running at that point. And then that's when I realized that he had nicked me with that spike bracelet and I was bleeding.
Yeah.
I ended up getting a few stitches at a local clinic. But that's just an illustration, an example of, even if you drop one of those pillars of security that you're talking about, if you have a good foundation, if you have, and I'm not saying to drop it, don't be situational. I'm saying don't do that. Be situation aware. Keep your eyes up. Pay attention to what's going on. Life, sometimes you might get caught off guard. You might get caught off balance. But if you have training and you have a foundation and experience behind it, you can recover from those mistakes a lot easier.
No doubt. That's right on point, man. And I think a lot of people would hear that and say, well, you didn't do anything wrong. What did they expect you to do? And I think now hearing that story is a good wake-up call for people that if you can avoid it, don't let somebody get to that point. It's okay to challenge some people before that guy sat down or got close. Had you had your heads up, you could have put your hands up and said, hey, I'm sitting here. That's a little bit too close. Step back. Or even stood up. I don't know if you were sitting down at the time, but stood up and squared off in a manner saying, I'm not a soft target. I know what you're up to.
Absolutely. So there's so many good takeaways from your stuff. And just like you hit on it, be that hard target. Don't be that soft target. They're looking for their easy victims.
Yep.
And if you are postured up and you're vigilant, people aren't going to want to mess with that person. They're wanting the easy money. They're wanting the easy victim.
Yep. That's it.
It has been awesome having you on the show. I want to give you the floor again to let you have any last minute wrap up comments, any last pieces that you want to share with us.
Yeah. Yep. I would say that for all those individuals out there, it doesn't matter how old you are, whether you're young, middle-aged, or even in your 50s, 60s, it's never too late to go into something new. If you're living your life and you've thought to yourself every now and then, is this what I really want to be doing? Am I doing what God called me to do? Is this really it for me to work here and do this 9 to 5? Let me tell you, the best thing you can do for yourself is take a moment, take some time out, like I said, whether you're young or older, and sit down and ask God, tell me my true life's purpose. What am I supposed to be doing right now? Am I being who I'm supposed to be? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing right now that is supposed to bring me joy, right? And that takes time. Number one, it takes for you to acknowledge that you're looking for that, right? Because it's one thing to keep going. You get comfortable doing something for so long and you feel like that's you now, going back to that identity, like that's what you're supposed to be doing. But society really is geared to bring you up, mold you, and point you in a certain direction. That's what you're supposed to do. And I think before you go down that road, especially if you're young and you're still trying to figure out who your true authentic self is. What is my purpose? What am I good at? What do I love doing? What do I get lost in when I start doing it? What is it that I do that when I look up, 8 hours have passed by and I ask myself, where did the time go? When you get lost in something that you're doing, you've basically stopped time. That's what you're doing. Time doesn't exist for you at that moment. When you look up and 12 hours have passed and you're like, where did the time go? You just figured it out. That's something you should look into. Maybe something you should be doing.
That's freaking awesome. I'm super grateful for everything you've shared with us. You're hitting right on some of the foundational pieces that we come back to here a lot, but you are putting it in such an eloquent way with such great perspective. And it's obviously from your experience.
Yeah.
So it has been so great having you on the show, for real. All of these things have just been absolutely perfect. Gonzo, really appreciate you being on the show. And I look forward to hearing more about your success as you continue to scale that epic business that you've got going on and see more about where life takes you.
All right, man. Anytime. Don't be a stranger.
Thank you for joining us today on this curious roller coaster of life. If this is your stop, please exit peacefully. Enjoy the rest of your day. If you're ready for another one, just push play. Just a final note before you go, thank you. And thank you for feeling. The distillation and aging process is different for everyone. I'm not quite sure what you're ready for. Sip slowly and enjoy responsibly.
Baby says she's leaving if I don't stop drinking wine. So I switched to whiskey, now I'm feeling fine. Drinking that smooth, smooth whiskey. No more wine. I like straight bourbon. Baby, you try the ride.
The grill is shot. The chairs are held together by optimism. And what happened to the rug? Sounds like your outdoor setup is not ready for patio season. Fix it all with Wayfair. Shop Wayfair for grills, rugs, furniture, and more. With 20 million 5-star reviews, room of choice delivery, and expert setup on qualifying orders, it's never been easier to do more for less. Get 10% off your first eligible purchase. Hurry to wayfair.com or download the app now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.